Resilient immune system. This is a really important topic for right now, but I also think actually a kind of fun one. So what we're going to get into today is whole foods, but also how to build that resilient immune system and what is a resilient immune system. I saw a lot of familiar names on the list of people coming up, but for those of you who we haven't met, my name is Lisa Kilgore. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, and I graduated from the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition in 2007. And I've been in private practice in the Okanagan Valley in BC for 12 years. And I'm also an educator. So I am a touring speaker. I did a TEDx talk about 5 years ago, and I tour around and I do webinars and I do all this kind of fun stuff. And just yesterday, my first book came out called Undieting: Freedom from the Bewildering World of Fad Diets. And in this book, I get into how our body, how we can interact with our body and understand what it is it wants us to know and do and eat. And you can walk away from diets forever and simply undiet. It's a great concept, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're going to be talking about resiliency and our immune system. So what does it mean to have a resilient immune system? How do we build a resilient immune system? We're also going to look at nutrition. I'm a holistic nutritionist. So of course, we're going to look at how the food we eat affects our immune system. We're going to look at certain nutrients that are helpful for the immune system, but also why do we want to look for whole food supplements? When are they beneficial and why are they beneficial? We're going to look a bit about Megafood, the sponsor of today's talk, and what they've done to ensure that their supplements are really absorbable and beneficial. And then we're going to look at the top nutrients for a resilient immune system. What is it that our body needs to make sure that our immune system is strong and happy and balanced? And then I'm going to sum it all up at the end with a bunch of key takeaways. And if, while you're watching this, if you have any questions, if you're watching live on Zoom, just type them in the chat box and I'm going to answer them at the end. If you're watching this on Facebook, just put it into the comments and we'll make sure that you get an answer later today. So what is a resilient immune system? What does it mean to have a resilient immune system? What this means is our immune system can adapt to adverse conditions and recover from them. That means like when you can be home and our immune system adapts to that, and then you can go outside and go to a grocery store and deal with interactions with other people, and our immune system can still deal with that. And so resiliency is simply the ability to adapt and change. And this is a trait that we can build. It's not a trait we have or we don't have. You're either built with a resilient immune system or you're not. This is something that we can do and we can build at any time. And it involves our behaviors, our thoughts, and our actions. And it can be learned and developed by anyone. And a lot of parts of resiliency is built into a lot of mindfulness exercises and many spiritual paths. And one of the factors that is linked to resilience is our perceived control. I went out for dinner with some friends yesterday and we were all talking about how exhausted and stressed we are through these last 6 months. And now we're looking at winter, and it's a very stressful time. And a big part of what's causing us stress is this inability to feel like we're in control over what's happening to us or what's enforced on us. And so what I want to kind of give as this like little ray of hope is that for your immune system, we can control this. We can build a resilient immune system at any time through our food and our nutrients and our lifestyle. And this is something we can absolutely control. And what we're going to talk a lot about today is our physical aspect of resiliency. How is our body resilient to illness and disease? And a good example of that is you take a person who is dealing with a cold or a flu and you throw them into a room full of healthy people. Well, some people are going to get sick from this person who has this virus, but not everybody. And the difference between being catching that virus or not can be the resiliency of your immune system or your constitution or your terrain. These are all the same words for resiliency, and proper nutrition can help us build that resiliency at any age. And so my question for you, something just to consider, is how healthy is your terrain? And if you're thinking like, I don't know, let's look at your nutrition. So nutrition is intricately linked to your immunity, and your resiliency and your ability to face what life throws at you can be affected by stress and sleep and exercise, environmental exposures, and so much more. But the biggest thing our immune system is benefited by, and the thing we have absolute ability to change, is our nutrition. We can choose what food goes into our mouth every day. And poorly nourished individuals are at a greater risk of bacterial, viral, and other infections. And these deficiencies can reduce your immune resiliency, but we can fix them. And chronic or severe infections can also just lead to deficiencies or lowered overall nutritional status. And that can be a chronic illness, that can be a chronic digestive issue that's affecting your ability to absorb and assimilate. And some medications can affect your absorption too, like acid blockers. They can be there for a reason, but we need to make sure we understand that they're also affecting the absorption of certain very important nutrients. And we want to ensure our optimal nutritional level to ensure our optimal nutritional or immune function. So they go hand in hand. We're going to be talking a lot about plant-based nutrients in particular, not only because they're really, really good for you and they are whole foods, but they also support our terrain by supporting our gut bacteria. And we're not going to talk too much about gut bacteria today, but it is also intertwined with our immune system. But every single time you eat a healthy whole food, you bring in prebiotic fiber that feeds your gut bacteria and supports this other important terrain. So just keep in mind, though we're not talking about that side, all of this is going to affect your gut bacteria as well, which is great. So why do we want to look at whole foods in our supplements as well as in our life? And that's because we think we know a lot about nutrition, but the truth is there's a lot of gaps in our knowledge in nutrition. The very first vitamin A, was only discovered in 1912. That's a relatively recent amount of time. We're discovering new components all the time. But what we really don't understand is how each aspect of food interacts with each other. Like, how does a phytonutrient support how a vitamin is absorbed? What are the enzymes and cofactors needed? And we do know, though, our body prefers whole food nutrients. There are some studies that show that whole food, bringing in a nutrient in a whole food form, is more absorbable. And so what do we do then if we need to supplement? What if we have developed a deficiency or two over time? Those are times where we need to bring in a higher dose of that nutrient to bring that level up. But how do we do that in an absorbable form? And that's where whole food supplements really shine. Because food is more than just a sum of its parts. There's a whole bunch of different parts to food. So first we have our macronutrients like proteins, carbs, and fats. We have our micronutrients, those are vitamins and minerals. We have our phytonutrients, that's the carotenoids, flavonoids, and other compounds. But there are also enzymes, coenzymes, antioxidants, and so many other factors that go into the biochemical operation of that vitamin. And when we take higher dose synthetic vitamins, we can use up our reserve of enzymes and coenzymes needed to use and assimilate that vitamin. When you take it as a food, it comes with everything that's needed. It's when we're taking it as a single synthetic nutrient that can use up these cofactors. And what happens is, over time, we can develop deficiencies and some trace elements and those cofactors and enzymes, and that can actually make that vitamin or mineral work in the opposite way. Instead of being beneficial for us, it can cause problems. And I dealt with this myself. About 20 years ago, I had multiple deficiencies due to a chronic illness mixed with a terrible diet, mixed with enormous stress. I was deficient in everything. And one of my healing things that I did was I took a high dose synthetic multivitamin. And honestly, it was a savior at the time. It made a huge difference in my health. And so I continued it for years. And I always thought this was so good for me. And then I started developing a really painful acne on my chin. And it was awful and painful. And I couldn't figure out what was causing it. At the time, I was also in school for nutrition, and I was reading a book called uh, Healing and Food and Healing by Anne Marie Colbin. Brilliant book from the 80s. It's still so good. And she talked about over supplementation and how one of the symptoms of over supplementation is painful pimples that feel like there's even minerals stuck in them. And that's exactly how I felt. So I thought, oh, maybe it's this multivitamin. Wasn't even on my radar that could be an issue. Stop the multivitamin and my skin cleared up. But to this day, I have to be very careful about the high dose single nutrients that I take. Even when I feel that there's a deficiency, it causes imbalances in my body all the time. And so my body is asked as politely as it can to say, hey, can you do this with food? Can you do this with whole food? Because I need those cofactors. And that's where whole food really, really shines. Because if we take an apple, let's take an apple and look at all of these cofactors. So first, let's say we're eating that apple to get some vitamin C, some ascorbic acid. When we eat that apple, we get so much more than ascorbic acid. We actually get all of these components. This is just what we know about an apple. The truth is that we can't make a food, so therefore there's a lot that we're missing. And we don't know how all of these interact. And that is a philosophy behind the supplements of Mega Foods. So Mega Foods, what they've done is they have incorporated higher dose nutrients in with food. So you can get this medicinal therapeutic dose of a nutrient, but you're getting all of those cofactors, and it's in a whole food form that our body understands. So what they've done is they've taken whole food. They've partnered with a bunch of farm partners. They buy 75,000 pounds of food every year, and then they process it in a very natural way. What they do is they take the whole food, the peel, and all, there's no juices, no extracts. They take it all and they bring it into a powder form, and then they dry it with the same dryer NASA uses to feed their astronauts. And that leaves this food still full of its flavor and antioxidants and color, like all of the good stuff. And then they use this process that they call the food state nutrient. And they've been doing this since 1973, and they incorporate extra ascorbic acid into that orange. And that allows our absorbency to be higher because we're getting all of those cofactors. And they do that with every single nutrient. So that's just vitamin C, but every nutrient, they take the food that would be the best for that nutrient, and they incorporate higher dose nutrients inside it. And that allows my body to accept minerals again, supplemental minerals again. It's a brilliant process. And just my computer's decided to get very slow. So the next thing we're going to look at is whole foods for a resilient immune system. And the first one is vitamin C. And I'm sure you already know that vitamin C is good for your immune system, but I want to tell you a few really key factors, because I want this to be top of mind as we go into the fall and winter, because it's such an important one. And kind of the most amazing thing that I've learned recently is as humans, we don't produce our own vitamin C, but that is actually unique in the world. There's only 4 or 5 of us: monkeys, apes, bats, guinea pigs, and humans. These are the only 5 animals that don't produce their own vitamin C, which means it's essential that we bring it in. And because in nature, when an animal gets sick, they will actually spike their natural production of vitamin C to deal with that infection. And we can see that in our body is the opposite. When our bodies are dealing with emotional, physical strain or illness, our vitamin C levels dramatically decline, and they decline rapidly. And this is probably due to our body's increased demand. We need more when we're sick. And research has found that vitamin C is essential for so many processes in our body, for growth and repair. It's used in many cells in our system. If you take collagen, a very popular supplement right now, you need vitamin C to use that in your skin. So this is an extra important time to take vitamin C. But let's look at it for your immune system specifically. And one of the things is vitamin C is a highly effective antioxidant. And when our immune system finds a virus or a bacteria and it kills it off, that actually creates a free radical. And so our body needs vitamin C to help balance out that natural process. Vitamin C also stimulates the production of several immune cells like neutrophils to kill off bacteria and viral infections. And it helps fight off infections and reduce allergic reactions. And right now, none of us want to sneeze in public. So calming down our allergic reaction is really important. And supplementing with vitamin C has been found to prevent and treat respiratory and systemic infections. And so when we want to just make sure we're supporting our immune system, we need about 100 to 200 milligrams of vitamin C every day. But during an infection, we need a lot more. So the question is how much is too much? And the benefit of vitamin C is your body won't let you take too much. What you get to is what's called bowel tolerance. And without getting too graphic, let's just say whoosh is what happens to that extra vitamin C. And so if you ever get that symptom, just lower your dose, and that can that will get rid of that symptom. When you're dealing with an infection, you usually can tolerate a lot more than you can on a healthy day. And we want to look at this food state vitamin C. So on the right side of the slide, you see two little graphs, and these are high performance liquid chromatography. And the top one is ascorbic acid. And you see those two little blips. That shows how little is in just ascorbic acid, because the bottom one is food state vitamin C, and this shows all of those cofactors. So this is that whole food form, and you can see that there's more than just those two little blips. So you're getting so much more than just ascorbic acid. You're getting that full spectrum. So with MegaFood, we have two types of vitamin C. We have complex vitamin C in a capsule, and this is gives you 250 milligrams of that food state vitamin C that's incorporated into that orange. Then they've also added whole food almond, rose hips, and green pepper, plus blueberry, cranberry, and orange. And that gives you all of these cofactors and phenolic blend to help with that absorption. And it also has a secondary bioflavonoid complex that helps with that extra absorption of vitamin C. But if you're like, Lisa, I am so tired of taking tablets and capsules, we have gummies, and these are so delicious. So if you have anybody in your family that really doesn't want to take a supplement, but you want them to get some vitamin C in every day, get some of these, but also just limit their amount, because it would be really easy to eat the entire container. So 2 gummies gives you 180 milligrams of vitamin C, plus a bunch of whole foods, sweet orange, cranberry, ginger, and blueberry. And this is a vegan gummy, and there's no high fructose corn syrup. There's nothing nasty. It's a really good quality gummy with whole foods in it, and you're getting that vitamin C. So it's a really, really easy way. These became my afternoon snack when I had them in the house. The next nutrient I want to tell you about is vitamin D. So vitamin D is our sunshine vitamin, and we need to be out in the sun to absorb it. But here in Canada, we have about 2 months and a couple hours every day to get our vitamin D level. And I used to think, I love the sun, I live in the Okanagan, I thought, I'm getting plenty of vitamin D, I don't need to supplement. And then I worked with a doctor who tested vitamin D levels in farm workers on the prairie, and he did it in September. So when their vitamin D level should be as high as possible, because they've been outside for 10 hours a day for months, and they were deficient. That's when I had a big rethink of my vitamin D supplementation. And vitamin D is more than just bone and calcium absorption. It has a big effect of our immune system. So there are vitamin D receptors and activating enzymes on the surface of all white blood cells. And what the immune system what the vitamin D does for the immune system is really, really complex. And that's because the immune system has to stay perfectly balanced. We don't want to boost our immune system, because boosting our immune system too high can lead to chronic inflammation and autoimmune conditions. But if our immune system is too low, then we don't fight infections off very well. So what we need is this Goldilocks balance spot. And what vitamin D does is it helps create that balance. And people with low levels of vitamin D can have either a low functioning immune system or a high functioning immune system. So it's been, low levels of vitamin D has been linked to both sides, both that autoimmune and frequent infections. So we want to make sure that we're getting in enough vitamin D. It also interacts with 1,000 different genes, and obesity obesity can increase your risk of deficiency, but most of it is simply a lack of sunlight, or if you have darker pigment skin and you live up here in Canada, because we only have those 2 months. Because we could be fully naked outside in the cold on a sunny day in the winter and not be able to produce enough vitamin D. So supplementation is really key. And there's a lot of vitamin D supplements on the market. And just an FYI, though, that some of the cheaper vitamin D3s on the market aren't necessarily a humane source. Many times animal carcasses are used. Whereas the Mega Foods vitamin D is an ethical product. It's from Happy sheep that are grass-fed and free range, and they take the oil by combing the sheep. Not shaving them. So no animals are harmed or killed, and this just takes a lot more time. The vitamin D is produced by the exposure of the lanolin that's naturally occurring in the sheep's hair to sunlight, and that generates that vitamin D3. And then Mega Foods integrates it with nutritional yeast to help with that absorption and give it the cofactors. So with vitamin D3, we've got 2 options here as well. We have just the tablet, which is 1,000 international units of vitamin D, along with brown rice, carrot, broccoli, beetroot, and parsley. Or if you, once again, are just so tired of taking tablets, there is the vitamin D3 gummies. Be careful with these. They're delicious, and every single one of them is 1,000 international units of vitamin D. It's combined with whole food, sweet orange, cranberry, blueberry, and ginger. Most of us just need 1,000 or 2,000 IUs of vitamin D a day. Sometimes we need up to about 5,000. I usually recommend don't go higher than 10. 10 is what research has found as being kind of that upper limit of what's safe to take. But you can get your blood tested. In Canada, most of us, though, are deficient. And so the best use of this test, because frequently you have to pay for it, is take vitamin D for 3 months, then get your blood tested. And this is going to test the blood saturation. It takes about 3 months to get there of that dose of vitamin D. So if you're taking 2,000 IUs of vitamin D, that is what your blood level is with that supplemental dose. So if you're fine, that's your dose to keep going, not that you're fine so you can stop supplementing. No. You got to keep that supplement to keep that blood level. If though you're still too low, double it and try again in 3 months. And that's the most accurate way to find out what your dose of vitamin D is. I worked with a doctor who tested all the time for quite a few years, and we found the range from 1,000 to 7,000 units a day was what was needed because each person was so different. So we need to do some testing to figure out which one works best for us. And the last of these 3 important immune nutrients is zinc. And zinc is also all over the news. Like all 3 of these nutrients have been all over the news lately. But zinc is a fairly new one that we've discovered the issues when we're deficient. And this is just in the 1960s that we realized that zinc is connected with the immune system and is actually referred to as the gatekeeper of the immune system. And we can see how important zinc is to the immune system by looking at zinc deficient people. When you have a deficiency in zinc, you can have low white blood cell count, a decreased ratio of T helper cells to cytotoxic T cells. You can decrease your natural killer cells activity, as well as you have an increase in monocyte cytotoxicity, which means our immune system is simply not working properly. And in multiple ways, it's not working properly. We used to think that it was rare, but it's actually much more common than we thought. Worldwide, about 20% of humans are deficient, and industrial countries can be as high as 30% of our elderly. And elderly people are much higher risk of being deficient. And that can be due to medications, or it can be due to just a low functioning stomach. We need a lot of acid to absorb zinc, or it can just be time, like over time we've developed that deficiency. There's a lot of studies that have demonstrated that zinc supplementation is good for viral infections, bacterial infections, as well as parasitic infections, but there isn't any way to test your zinc level. Unfortunately, there isn't, like vitamin D, there isn't a blood test that can tell you if you're deficient. So zinc deficiencies are difficult to diagnose. And because of that, I recommend supplementing with zinc if you suspect a deficiency, but just at a moderate dose. You never want to take more than 50 milligrams of zinc from all sources, from your supplements and from your multis. Like, make sure that you never go above 50. Otherwise, you can create an imbalance in copper. And so the Megafood Zinc is 22 milligrams, 22 and a half milligrams of zinc combined in with that nutritional yeast, along with whole food broccoli and whole food beets. And it's just a good idea to supplement if you just think you have a deficiency, like you feel like your immune system is a bit fragile. Maybe you're getting more sicker in the winter than you thought you would. And you can also take zinc if you just feel a cold coming on, and that can help with your recovery. But the truth is, so we've talked about those top three, our whole body needs to be fed properly. So we need to be looking at the quality of our diet. But if you've been dealing with a chronic illness or a chronic stress, or your digestive system hasn't been functioning well for a while, you may have multiple deficiencies like I did 20 years ago. And that's where multivitamins can be beneficial. But there we also have to watch quality, because taking in a ton of synthetic single nutrients can cause a lot of imbalances, like it did with me. So the one multi that I've managed, I can actually take, and I've been taking successfully for over a year now, whereas other multis I would start noticing symptoms after the second day. This is Megafoods, and Megafoods has a wide variety of different multis. I'm going to go through them in a second, but they all have whole state foods mixed with food state nutrients. So all of the nutrients are those nutrients that are incorporated with food. They also have extra food to help support the digestion of them. And many of them, not all of them, but many of them have tonic herbs to help support the body. So they're separated in men and women, and we have women under 40, or sorry, the women one is for all women who are menstruating, and this helps support our monthly cycle, but also as tonic herbs to help with our hormones. Women over 40 is actually women perimenopause, menopause age. So this is a good time when that hormone transition happens. This is very supportive for that. And then women 55 plus, there's no herbs in this one, so there's no interaction with medication, and it's also formulated to support medication deficiencies. With men, we have a similar combination. We have the men, which has tonic herbs to support our hormones. Men over 40, this can be somewhere in your 40s if there's a bit of a testosterone imbalance happening. This is supportive for that time. And then the men 55 plus, no herbs. Great if you're on multiple medications. But if you're saying, Lisa, come on, I just want to buy one thing for my family, Megafoods One Daily, digestible, easy to break down, easy to absorb, and good for everybody. So those are some multis if you feel you need that extra support. And last but certainly not least is just what we've talked about today. And then I'm going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, just type them in the chat. So we've talked about how important vitamins and minerals are for our physiology, that without sufficient quantities, our health concerns can rise. And vitamins and minerals in nature are never isolated, but they're in this complex food matrix, and we don't fully understand how that affects our overall body. So we want to be looking for supplements with meaningful potencies, with that therapeutic dose, but with whole food nutrients, especially if you're worried about deficiencies or absorption, or if you, like me, have over-supplemented in your past. And for extra immune support, just consider extra whole food vitamin C, vitamin D, or zinc. These are your three brothers to help, or sisters, let's not be gender specific, three wonderful vitamins that can help support your immune system through this fall and winter. So we have a couple minutes left for questions. And first I want to thank you so much for joining. Those of you joining live, thanks for taking your time out of your day. Those of you who are watching, again, thank you for taking time out of your day. If you have any questions and you're watching this on Facebook, just plop them in the comments and we'll answer them. And I'm going to open up, I see a few questions coming in the Q&A and the chat. So I'm going to open both of those up. Let's see. So the first question is it too much to be taking zinc, vitamin C, and vitamin D all together? I love that. That's a great question. So we do want to be concerned with taking giant piles of supplements. And I've worked with people who take so many supplements that they've brought like an 8.5, like a page like this, single line, and it's multiple pages of supplements. And this is when we really have to be careful. But if you're keeping it down to 3 to 5, our bodies can handle that, especially if you're doing it in these whole food forms, because our bodies won't be becoming deficient in those cofactors. So you're able to bring in those nutrients without creating any deficiencies. The next one is how do I know if I'm deficient in a vitamin, say, for example, zinc? So some of the ways that we can find deficiencies are through symptoms, and sometimes it's through blood work. So vitamin D is the big one for blood work, and B12 is another really good one to keep an eye on in your blood work. Iron, those three: iron, B12, vitamin D. But most of our nutrients, there isn't a biomarker to check. So with zinc, it's watching your symptoms. So I usually recommend zinc if somebody has symptoms of a fragile immune system, or if they have lost their sense of taste and smell. That can be, for some people, a zinc deficiency symptom. If we know that their stomach isn't working properly, there's a correlation between stomach acid production and zinc levels, and we need zinc to make stomach acid. We need stomach acid to absorb zinc, and so we can there's a spiral down that can happen with your stomach, and so bringing in zinc can bring that stomach function back up. So I usually just look and see what their symptoms are. Vitamin C, you can see it in your skin sometimes. Your collagen, like if you feel like you're wrinkling more than you usually do, that can be a sign of low vitamin C. It can be just like if you eat an orange or a piece of fruit and it just feels fantastic. That's usually my like, ooh, I need some vitamins in general, but let's look at vitamin C. And none of these are like, you do have to watch not supplementing too much with zinc and vitamins and vitamin D, but vitamin C you can be taking, and your body will flush if you're taking too much, and you'll know you're flushing, so you can take less. Andrea asks, is there a certain time of the day to take vitamins or probiotics? Better to take one or the other in the morning versus the evening? Great question. So vitamins, generally take them in the morning because they'll give you energy and you want to use that energy. Minerals can be taken either in the morning or the evening. In the evening, they can calm you down and help you rest. So it's a great time to take them. Vitamin D is a good one to take in the morning too, because it's sunshine and it can give you energy. And probiotics, best at dinner. And the all evening minerals are at dinner, not before bed, but at dinner. And probiotics are great to take at night because they get into your gut and they spend more time in your gut. And so those are just the optimal times. Other than like a vitamin B complex, you really can take everything else whenever you remember. So if you don't remember taking anything, unless you take it with breakfast, just take it all with breakfast, no big deal. What I love about Mega Foods nutrients, especially the multis, is they can be taken and absorbed on an empty stomach, which is not common for most nutrients. And so if you don't like breakfast, you're still able to take it. Monica asks, and hi, Monica, I recognize your name. This one's a great one. So it frosts my shorts a bit that everyone is talking about vaccines and virus, but nobody seems interested in talking about the things we could could be doing. Thanks. Congrats on your book. Thank you, Monica. I think that these are important conversations because our food is really powerful and it's something we can do. And when we take care of our own health, we can feel powerful just in that, and it can help with that resiliency right there. So good comment, Monica. So Sarah, I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name, terrible. She's looking for a supplement for a 19-year-old daughter. What would be a suitable supplement? So for your 19-year-old daughter, the multi for women would be a nice supportive one. And then outside of that would be whatever she needs. At 19, she has a full adult body. So she's able to take anything. We just don't want to have her take everything, because under 25, I find the bodies react really easily and fast. And so we just need to do a little bit and we get a great response. So even just if you feel like she's maybe dealing with some deficiencies, just a good multi might be enough for her, or maybe bringing in some vitamin C. So it doesn't need to be tons, just start with 1 or 2 and see how she feels. Another question came in is, can you overdose on vitamin D? And if so, what will happen? Yes, you can. I've only seen this once, and it is it's a fat soluble vitamin and can create toxicity in the body. And I don't know what the actual symptoms are because it is really, really rare, but we do want to be careful, and it can be found in a blood test. The one time I saw it happen, I worked in integrative cancer care for 2 years, and I worked with a gentleman who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he was doing every single thing the internet told him to do. And some website said, when you have cancer, you need to take enormous doses of vitamin D, and you will not become toxic. And so he was taking 100,000 little doses, 100,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. And his level was over 200. And so around 100 is where you want to be. So his level was about twice what it should be. So he was at a toxic level. So that website was terrible and wrong. And he did take an enormous amount. What research has found is generally under 10,000 IUs is safe. But I usually like to be a bit more conservative, and I find around anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 tends to be a good medicinal dose without causing toxicity. And there's one more question. Oh, there's a couple more questions coming in. Any newish food combination recommendations for increasing nutrient value of one or the other? Let me just read through this. Okay, so basically this question is asking the recommended daily intake dose, like what the government said we need. Like when you look on the nutritional panel, it will tell you the percentage of that we get. That's only about 60 milligrams of vitamin C. So this one's asking, is that too low? Yes. So what research has found is between 100 and 200 milligrams of vitamin C is a much better dose for our body. That's where our blood has a better saturation of vitamin C. The level of that 60 milligrams, the generally recommended daily intake dose is just to prevent whatever chronic illness can come from being too low. So with vitamin C, 60 milligrams prevents scurvy, but is not the ideal dose. The ideal dose is almost just over twice that. So we do want to do more than just the recommended daily intake. And there's a second part of that same question. What dosage for vitamin C? Let's see. Oh, so he's saying what his naturopath recommends is 25 milligrams of zinc for maintenance, and for illness is 75. So what I'm recommending at the under 50 is for a daily dose. So when you're sick, you can usually take more zinc, but you don't want to be taking a higher dose every single day. So what I've found in the research is somewhere around that 25 milligram mark is great, but anywhere between 15 and 50 is ideal. So everybody will have their own opinion in that mark, but we're generally all have this consensus that don't go higher than 50, and around 25 is pretty okay. So a couple last questions. Nikki lives in sunny San Diego. So how much vitamin D would you suggest starting with? So Nikki, you do have the ability to absorb vitamin D at a much longer time than all of us up here in Canada. And so you might want to just start with about 1,000 IUs of vitamin D, or where you live, you could actually just go and get a blood test and see if you're deficient in the first place, because you may not be. You live far enough south that you might be just fine, and only supplement if you need that. So I'd either recommend a very, very low dose, or what would be better is go and see, do you need any in the first place? And if you are low, then start supplementing at that lower dose and test again in 3 months and see if you need it. The next one is also about vitamin D. Should I supplement more of vitamin D during the winter? Yes and no. The government recommends 1,000 in the summer and 2,000 in the winter. But I've found that many of us we do get a boost in the summertime, but it's such a short window that we could just have the same dose all year round, because there isn't a 6-month window, it's a 2-month window. So what's easy is just do the same thing all year. But if you feel like you don't need as much in the summer, that's okay too. And the last question is, what dosage range for vitamin C when you're ill? Great question. So that 100 to 200 milligrams of vitamin C is an everyday dose. When you're ill, you can take a much higher dose. I've taken 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C just fine when I'm sick. There are people that are recommending really high doses, like 10 grams a day, and that's just not usually necessary. So I usually just bump up your level. Like you could take that 100 or 200 milligram dose every couple hours if you're sick, but then just take it once a day when you're not sick. So that's all of the questions. And we, oh, one more. Sorry, multivitamins that include vitamin C, D. Can you take them and with the individual ones, or is it too much? Great question. So multivitamins usually have just a little bit of these nutrients, and they're not usually enough to fix a deficiency. So especially with vitamin D, there might be 400 IUs of vitamin D. You're going to need more than that to fix a deficiency. So what you want to do is just pay attention to what's in your multi and then supplement on top of that. So just make sure your zinc doesn't get above 50, your vitamin D doesn't get too high. And with vitamin C, you're trying to get that optimal 1 to 200 milligram range. And one last question is somebody's asking where you can purchase my new book. This is available online, Chapters, Indigo, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's also available in some stores. Most bookstores can order it in if you don't have it already. So it's Undieting, Freedom from the Bewildering World of Fad Diets. Thank you all so much for joining this webinar. I've had a blast. You guys asked amazing questions, and I hope that you feel a little bit more confident in what you can do to help support your immune system through this winter. And let's stay safe and stay healthy. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.